Welcome to Mythology at Dusk. Take a slow breath. Whatever the day has held, however heavy it has been, let it settle now. Tonight, we visit ancient Greece and Rome. Tonight, a flower and the trap set inside it. The Greeks said the earth grew a narcissus on a soft meadow, 100 blooms on a single root, so sweet that the whole sky and the salt sea laughed for joy to see it. And when a girl reached out with both hands to take the lovely thing, the ground opened under her, and black horses came up out of the dark. We'll follow her mother across the world after her, a torch in either hand, down to the few pomegranate seeds that settled the bargain. Then we'll go down a second time with a singer who believed he could bring his wife back out again. And at the last, slowly, past the still lake at Avernus and the ferryman waiting on the Styx, we'll walk into the country of the dead itself. Before we begin, leave a comment and tell me where you are listening from tonight and what time it is for you right now. Every comment helps this small channel reach someone else who needs quiet tonight. And if Mythology at Dusk has helped you sleep, consider subscribing so tomorrow night's story is ready when you are. Now close your eyes, take a slow breath, let the old stories carry you. Let us begin. The Taking of Persephone. From Chapter 7. When Jupiter and his brothers had defeated the Titans and banished them to Tartarus, a new enemy rose up against the gods. They were the giants Typhon, Briareus, Enceladus, and others. Some of them had 100 arms, others breathed out fire. They were finally subdued and buried alive under Mount Etna, where they still sometimes struggle to get loose and shake the whole island with earthquakes. Their breath comes up through the mountain and is what men call the eruption of the volcano. The fall of these monsters shook the earth, so that Pluto was alarmed and feared that his kingdom would be laid open to the light of day. Under this apprehension, he mounted his chariot, drawn by black horses, and took a circuit of inspection to satisfy himself of the extent of the damage. While he was thus engaged, Venus, who was sitting on Mount Eryx playing with her boy Cupid, espied him and said, "My son, take your darts with which you conquer all, even Jove himself, and send one into the breast of yonder dark monarch, who rules the realm of Tartarus. Why should he alone escape? Seize the opportunity to extend your empire and mine. Do you not see that even in heaven some despise our power? Minerva the wise and Diana the huntress defy us, and there is that daughter of Ceres who threatens to follow their example. Now do you, if you have any regard for your own interest or mine, join these two in one." The boy unbound his quiver and selected his sharpest and truest arrow. Then straining the bow against his knee, he attached the string and, having made ready, shot the arrow with its barbed point right into the heart of Pluto. In the Vale of Enna, there is a lake embowered in woods, which screen it from the fervid rays of the sun, while the moist ground is covered with flowers, and spring reigns perpetual. Here, Proserpine was playing with her companions, gathering lilies and violets, and filling her basket and her apron with them, when Pluto saw her, loved her, and carried her off. She screamed for help to her mother and companions, and when, in her fright, she dropped the corners of her apron and let the flowers fall, childlike she felt the loss of them as an addition to her grief. The ravisher urged on his steeds, calling them each by name, and throwing loose over their heads and necks his iron-coloured reins. When he reached the river Cyane, and it opposed his passage. He struck the riverbank with his trident, and the earth opened and gave him a passage to Tartarus. Ceres sought her daughter all the world over, bright-haired Aurora, when she came forth in the morning, and Hesperus, when he led out the stars in the evening, found her still busy in the search. But it was all unavailing. At length, weary and sad, she sat down upon a stone and continued sitting 9 days and nights in the open air, under the sunlight and moonlight and falling showers. It was where now stands the city of Eleusis, then the home of an old man named Celeus. He was out in the field, gathering acorns and blackberries and sticks for his fire. His little girl was driving home their 2 goats, and as she passed the goddess, who appeared in the guise of an old woman, she said to her, "Mother," and the name was sweet to the ears of Ceres. "Why do you sit here alone upon the rocks?" The old man also stopped, though his load was heavy, and begged her to come into his cottage, such as it was. She declined, and he urged her. "Go in peace," she replied, "and be happy in your daughter. I have lost mine." As she spoke, tears, or something like tears, for the gods never weep, fell down her cheeks upon her bosom. The compassionate old man and his child wept with her. Then said he, "Come with us, and despise not our humble roof, so may your daughter be restored to you in safety." "Lead on," said she. "I cannot resist that appeal." So she rose from the stone and went with them. As they walked, he told her that his only son, a little boy, lay very sick, feverish, and sleepless. She stooped and gathered some poppies. As they entered the cottage, they found all in great distress, for the boy seemed past hope of recovery. Metanira, his mother, received her kindly, and the goddess stooped and kissed the lips of the sick child. Instantly the paleness left his face, and healthy vigor returned to his body. The whole family were delighted, that is, the father, mother, and little girl, for they were all. They had no servants. They spread the table and put upon it curds and cream, apples, and honey in the comb. While they ate, Ceres mingled poppy juice in the milk of the boy. When night came and all was still, she arose, and taking the sleeping boy, moulded his limbs with her hands, and uttered over him 3 times a solemn charm, then went and laid him in the ashes. His mother, who had been watching what her guest was doing, sprang forward with a cry and snatched the child from the fire. Then Ceres assumed her own form, and a divine splendor shone all around. While they were overcome with astonishment, she said, "Mother, you have been cruel in your fondness to your son. I would have made him immortal, but you have frustrated my attempt. Nevertheless, he shall be great and useful. He shall teach men the use of the plough, and the rewards which labor can win from the cultivated soil." So saying, she wrapped a cloud about her, and mounting her chariot rode away. Ceres continued her search for her daughter, passing from land to land, and across seas and rivers, till at length she returned to Sicily, whence she at first set out, and stood by the banks of the river Cyane, where Pluto made himself a passage with his prize to his own dominions. The river nymph would have told the goddess all she had witnessed, but dared not, for fear of Pluto, so she only ventured to take up the girdle which Proserpine had dropped in her flight, and waft it to the feet of the mother. Ceres, seeing this, was no longer in doubt of her loss, But she did not yet know the cause, and laid the blame on the innocent land. "Ungrateful soil," said she, "which I have endowed with fertility and clothed with herbage and nourishing grain, no more shall you enjoy my favours." Then the cattle died, the plough broke in the furrow, the seed failed to come up. There was too much sun, there was too much rain. The birds stole the seeds. Thistles and brambles were the only growth. Seeing this, the fountain Arethusa interceded for the land. "Goddess," said she, "blame not the land. It opened unwillingly to yield a passage to your daughter. I can tell you of her fate, for I have seen her. This is not my native country. I came hither from Elis. I was a woodland nymph and delighted in the chase. They praised my beauty, but I cared nothing for it, and rather boasted of my hunting exploits. One day, I was returning from the wood, heated with exercise, when I came to a stream silently flowing, so clear that you might count the pebbles on the bottom. The willows shaded it, and the grassy bank sloped down to the water's edge. I approached. I touched the water with my foot. I stepped in knee-deep, and not content with that, I laid my garments on the willows and went in. While I sported in the water, I heard an indistinct murmur coming up as out of the depths of the stream, and made haste to escape to the nearest bank. The voice said, "Why do you fly, Arethusa? I am Orpheus, the god of this stream." I ran. He pursued. He was not more swift than I, but he was stronger, and gained upon me as my strength failed. At last, exhausted, I cried for help to Diana. "Help me, goddess! Help your votary!" The goddess heard and wrapped me suddenly in a thick cloud. The river god looked now this way and now that, and twice came close to me, but could not find me. "Arethusa! Arethusa!" he cried. Oh, how I trembled. Like a lamb that hears the wolf growling outside the fold. A cold sweat came over me. My hair flowed down in streams. Where my foot stood, there was a pool. In short, in less time than it takes to tell it, I became a fountain. But in this form, Orpheus knew me and attempted to mingle his stream with mine. Diana cleft the ground, and I, endeavouring to escape him, plunged into the cavern, and through the bowels of the earth came out here in Sicily. While I passed through the lower parts of the earth, I saw your Proserpine. She was sad, but no longer showing alarm in her countenance. Her look was such as became a queen, the queen of Erebus, the powerful bride of the monarch of the realms of the dead. When Ceres heard this, she stood for a while like one stupefied, then turned her chariot towards heaven and hastened to present herself before the throne of Jove. She told the story of her bereavement and implored Jupiter to interfere to procure the restitution of her daughter. Jupiter consented on one condition, namely, that Proserpine should not during her stay in the lower world have taken any food. Otherwise, the fates forbade her release. Accordingly, Mercury was sent, accompanied by Spring, to demand Proserpine of Pluto. The wily monarch consented. But, alas, the maiden had taken a pomegranate which Pluto offered her, and had sucked the sweet pulp from a few of the seeds. This was enough to prevent her complete release, but a compromise was made, by which she was to pass half the time with her mother, and the rest with her husband Pluto. Ceres allowed herself to be pacified with this arrangement, and restored the earth to her favour. Now she remembered Celeus and his family, and her promise to his infant son Triptolemus. When the boy grew up, she taught him the use of the plough and how to sow the seed. She took him in her chariot, drawn by winged dragons, through all the countries of the earth, imparting to mankind valuable grains and the knowledge of agriculture. After his return, Triptolemus built a magnificent temple to Ceres in Eleusis and established the worship of the goddess under the name of the Eleusinian Mysteries, which, in the splendor and solemnity of their observance, surpassed all other religious celebrations among the Greeks. There can be little doubt of this story of Ceres and Proserpine being an allegory. Proserpine signifies the seed corn, which when cast into the ground lies there concealed. That is, she is carried off by the god of the underworld. It reappears. That is, Proserpine is restored to her mother. Spring leads her back to the light of day. Milton alludes to the story of Proserpine in Paradise Lost, but not that fair field of Enna where Proserpine, gathering flowers, herself a fairer flower, by gloomy Dis was gathered, which cost Ceres all that pain to seek her through the world, might with this paradise of Eden strive. Hood, in his Ode to Melancholy, uses the same allusion very beautifully. Forgive, if somewhile I forget, in woe to come the present bliss, as frighted Proserpine let fall her flowers at the sight of Dis. The river Orpheus does in fact disappear underground, in part of its course, finding its way through subterranean channels till it again appears on the surface. It was said that the Sicilian fountain Arethusa was the same stream, which, after passing under the sea, came up again in Sicily. Hence the story ran that a cup thrown into the Orpheus appeared again in Arethusa. It is this fable of the underground course of Orpheus that Coleridge alludes to in his poem of Kubla Khan. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure dome decree, where Alph, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. In one of Moore's juvenile poems, he thus alludes to the same story, and to the practice of throwing garlands or other light objects on his stream to be carried downward by it, and afterwards reproduced at its emerging. O my beloved, how divinely sweet is the pure joy when kindred spirits meet, like him, the river god, whose waters flow, with love their only light, through caves below, wafting in triumph all the flowery braids and festal rings with which Olympic maids have decked his current, as an offering meet to lay at Arethusa's shining feet. Think, when he meets at last his fountain bride, what perfect love must thrill the blended tide, each lost in each, till mingling into one, their lot the same, for shadow or for sun, a type of true love, to the deep they run. The following extract from Moore's Rhymes on the Road gives an account of a celebrated picture by Albano at Milan, called A Dance of Loves. 'Tis for the theft of Enna's flower from earth. These urchins celebrate their dance of mirth, round the green tree, like fays upon a heath. Those that are nearest linked in order bright, cheek after cheek, like rosebuds in a wreath, and those more distant showing from beneath the other's wings their little eyes of light, while see, among the clouds, their eldest brother, but just flown up, tells with a smile of bliss this prank of Pluto to his charmed mother, who turns to greet the tidings with a kiss. Demeter's Search and the Bargain of the Pomegranate. From two to Demeter, I begin to sing of rich-haired Demeter, awful goddess, of her and her trim-ankled daughter, whom Aidoneus rapt away, given to him by all-seeing Zeus the loud thunderer. Apart from Demeter, lady of the golden sword and glorious fruits, she was playing with the deep-bosomed daughters of Oceanus and gathering flowers over a soft meadow, roses and crocuses and beautiful violets, irises also and hyacinths and the narcissus, which earth made to grow at the will of Zeus and to please the host of many, to be a snare for the bloom-like girl, a marvelous, radiant flower. It was a thing of awe, whether for deathless gods or mortal men to see. From its root grew 100 blooms, and it smelled most sweetly, so that all wide heaven above, and the whole earth and the sea's salt swell laughed for joy. And the girl was amazed and reached out with both hands to take the lovely toy. But the wide-pathed earth yawned there in the plain of Nysa, and the Lord, host of many, with his immortal horses sprang out upon her, the son of Kronos, he who has many names. He caught her up, reluctant, on his golden car, and bare her away, lamenting. Then she cried out shrilly with her voice, calling upon her father, the son of Kronos, who is most high and excellent. But no one, either of the deathless gods or of mortal men, heard her voice, nor yet the olive trees bearing rich fruit. Only tender-hearted Hecate, bright coiffed, the daughter of Perseus, heard the girl from her cave, and the Lord Helios, Hyperion's bright son, as she cried to her father, the son of Kronos. But he was sitting aloof, apart from the gods, in his temple where many pray, and receiving sweet offerings from mortal men. So he, that son of Kronos, of many names, who is ruler of many and host of many, was bearing her away by leave of Zeus on his immortal chariot, his own brother's child, and all unwilling. And so long as she, the goddess, yet beheld earth and starry heaven, and the strong flowing sea where fishes shoal, and the rays of the sun, and still hoped to see her dear mother and the tribes of the eternal gods, so long hope calmed her great heart for all her trouble. And the heights of the mountains and the depths of the sea rang with her immortal voice, and her queenly mother heard her. Bitter pain seized her heart, and she rent the covering upon her divine hair with her dear hands. Her dark cloak she cast down from both her shoulders and sped, like a wild bird, over the firm land and yielding sea, seeking her child. But no one would tell her the truth, neither god nor mortal men, and of the birds of omen none came with true news for her. Then for 9 days, queenly Deo wandered over the earth with flaming torches in her hands, so grieved that she never tasted ambrosia and the sweet draught of nectar, nor sprinkled her body with water. But when the 10th enlightening dawn had come, Hecate, with a torch in her hands, met her and spoke to her and told her news. Queenly Demeter, bringer of seasons and giver of good gifts, what god of heaven or what mortal man has rapt away Persephone and pierced with sorrow your dear heart? For I heard her voice, yet saw not with my eyes who it was. But I tell you truly and shortly all I know. So then, said Hecate, and the daughter of rich-haired Rhea answered her not, but sped swiftly with her, holding flaming torches in her hands. So they came to Helios, who is watchman of both gods and men, and stood in front of his horses. And the bright goddess inquired of him, Helios, do you at least regard me, goddess as I am, if ever by word or deed of mine I have cheered your heart and spirit? Through the fruitless air, I heard the thrilling cry of my daughter, whom I bear, sweet scion of my body and lovely in form, as of one seized violently, though with my eyes I saw nothing. But you, for with your beams you look down from the bright upper air over all the earth and sea. Tell me truly of my dear child, if you have seen her anywhere, what god or mortal man has violently seized her against her will and mine, and so made off? So said she, and the son of Hyperion answered her, Queen Demeter, daughter of rich-haired Rhea, I will tell you the truth, for I greatly reverence and pity you in your grief for your trim-ankled daughter. None other of the deathless gods is to blame, but only cloud-gathering Zeus, who gave her to Hades, her father's brother, to be called his buxom wife. And Hades seized her and took her, loudly crying in his chariot, down to his realm of mist and gloom. Yet, goddess, cease your loud lament, and keep not vain anger unrelentingly. Aidoneus, the ruler of many, is no unfitting husband among the deathless gods for your child, being your own brother and born of the same stock. Also, for honor, he has that third share which he received when division was made at the first, and is appointed lord of those among whom he dwells. So he spake, and called to his horses, and at his chiding they quickly whirled the swift chariot along, like long-winged birds. But grief yet more terrible and savage came into the heart of Demeter, and thereafter she was so angered with the dark-clouded son of Kronos that she avoided the gathering of the gods and high Olympus, and went to the towns and rich fields of men, disfiguring her form a long while. And no one of men or deep-bosomed women knew her when they saw her, until she came to the house of wise Celeus, who then was lord of fragrant Eleusis. Vexed in her dear heart, she sat near the wayside by the maiden well, from which the women of the place were used to draw water, in a shady place over which grew an olive shrub. And she was like an ancient woman who is cut off from childbearing and the gifts of garland-loving Aphrodite, like the nurses of kings' children who deal justice, or like the housekeepers in their echoing halls. There the daughters of Celeus, son of Eleusis, saw her, as they were coming for easy-drawn water, to carry it in pitchers of bronze to their dear father's house. For were they, and like goddesses in the flower of their girlhood, Calidis and Cleisides, and lovely Demo and Calitho, who was the eldest of them all. They knew her not, for the gods are not easily discerned by mortals, but standing near by her spoke winged words. Old mother, whence and who are you of folk born long ago? Why are you gone away from the city and do not draw near the houses? For there in the shady halls are women of just such age as you, and others younger, and they would welcome you both by word and by deed. Thus they said, and she, that queen among goddesses, answered them, saying, Hail, dear children, whosoever you are of womankind, I will tell you my story, for it is not unseemly that I should tell you truly what you ask. Doso is my name, for my stately mother gave it me, and now I am come from Crete over the sea's wide back. Not willingly, but pirates brought me thence by force of strength against my liking. Afterwards, they put in with their swift craft to Thoricus, and there the women landed on the shore in full throng, and the men likewise, and they began to make ready a meal by the stern cables of the ship. But my heart craved not pleasant food, and I fled secretly across the dark country, and escaped my masters, that they should not take me unpurchased across the sea, there to win a price for me. And so I wandered and am come here, and I know not at all what land this is, or what people are in it. But may all those who dwell on Olympus give you husbands, and birth of children as parents desire. So you take pity on me, maidens, and show me this clearly, that I may learn, dear children, to the house of what man and woman I may go, to work for them cheerfully at such tasks as belong to a woman of my age. Well could I nurse a newborn child, holding him in my arms, or keep house, or spread my master's bed in a recess of the well-built chamber, or teach the women their work. So said the goddess, and straightway the unwed maiden Calidus, goodliest in form of the daughters of Celeus, answered her and said, Mother, what the gods send us, we mortals bear perforce, although we suffer, for they are much stronger than we. But now I will teach you clearly, telling you the names of men who have great power and honor here, and are chief among the people, guarding our city's coif of towers by their wisdom and true judgments. There is wise Triptolemus, and Dioclus, and Polyxenus, and blameless Eumolpus, and Dolichus, and our own brave father. All these have wives who manage in the house, and no one of them, so soon as she has seen you, would dishonor you and turn you from the house. But they will welcome you, for indeed you are godlike. But if you will, stay here, and we will go to our father's house and tell Metanira, our deep-bosomed mother, all this matter fully, that she may bid you rather come to our home than search after the houses of others. She has an only son, late born, who is being nursed in our well-built house, a child of many prayers and welcome. If you could bring him up until he reached the full measure of youth, any one of womankind who should see you would straightway envy you. Such gifts would our mother give for his upbringing. So she spake, and the goddess bowed her head in assent, and they filled their shining vessels with water and carried them off rejoicing. Quickly they came to their father's great house, and straightway told their mother according as they had heard and seen. Then she bade them go with all speed and invite the stranger to come for a measureless hire, as hinds or heifers in springtime, when sated with pasture, bound about a meadow, so they, holding up the folds of their lovely garments, darted down the hollow path, and their hair like a crocus flower streamed about their shoulders. And they found the good goddess near the wayside, where they had left her before, and led her to the house of their dear father. And she walked behind, distressed in her dear heart, with her head veiled and wearing a dark cloak which waved about the slender feet of the goddess. Soon they came to the house of heaven, nurtured Celeus, and went through the portico to where their queenly mother sat by a pillar of the close-fitted roof, holding her son, a tender scion, in her bosom. And the girls ran to her, but the goddess walked to the threshold, and her head reached the roof, and she filled the doorway with a heavenly radiance. Then awe and reverence and pale fear took hold of Metanira, and she rose up from her couch before Demeter and bade her be seated. But Demeter, bringer of seasons and giver of perfect gifts, would not sit upon the bright couch, but stayed silent with lovely eyes cast down until careful Iambe placed a jointed seat for her and threw over it a silvery fleece. Then she sat down and held her veil in her hands before her face. A long time she sat upon the stool without speaking because of her sorrow, and greeted no one by word or by sign, but rested, never smiling, and tasting neither food nor drink, because she pined with longing for her deep-bosomed daughter, until careful Iambe, who pleased her moods in aftertime also, moved the holy lady with many a quip and jest to smile and laugh and cheer her heart. Then Metanira filled a cup with sweet wine and offered it to her. But she refused it, for she said it was not lawful for her to drink red wine, but bade them mix a meal and water with soft mint and give her to drink. And Metanira mixed the draught and gave it to the goddess as she bade. So the great Queen Deo received it to observe the sacrament. And of them all, well-girded Metanira first began to speak. "Hail, lady, for I think you are not meanly but nobly born. Truly, dignity and grace are conspicuous upon your eyes, as in the eyes of kings that deal justice. Yet we mortals bear perforce what the gods send us, though we be grieved, for a yoke is set upon our necks. But now, since you are come here, you shall have what I can bestow, and nurse me this child whom the gods gave me in my old age and beyond my hope, a son much prayed for. If you should bring him up until he reach the full measure of youth, any one of womankind that sees you will straightway envy you. So great reward would I give for his upbringing." Then rich-haired Demeter answered her, "And to you also, lady, all hail, and may the gods give you good. Gladly will I take the boy to my breast, as you bid me, and will nurse him. Never, I ween, through any heedlessness of his nurse shall witchcraft hurt him, nor yet the undercutter. For I know a charm far stronger than the woodcutter, and I know an excellent safeguard against woeful witchcraft." When she had so spoken, she took the child in her fragrant bosom with her divine hands, and his mother was glad in her heart. So the goddess nursed in the palace Demephone, wise Celeus's goodly son, whom well-girded Metanira bare. And the child grew like some immortal being, not fed with food, nor nourished at the breast. For by day, rich-crowned Demeter would anoint him with ambrosia, as if he were the offspring of a god, and breathe sweetly upon him as she held him in her bosom. But at night, she would hide him like a brand in the heart of the fire, unknown to his dear parents. And it wrought great wonder in these, that he grew beyond his age, for he was like the gods face to face, and she would have made him deathless and unaging, had not well-girded Metanira in her heedlessness kept watch by night from her sweet-smelling chamber and spied. But she wailed and smote her 2 hips, because she feared for her son and was greatly distraught in her heart. So she lamented and uttered winged words. "Demephone, my son, the strange woman buries you deep in fire, and works grief and bitter sorrow for me." Thus she spoke, mourning, and the bright goddess, lovely crowned Demeter, heard her and was wroth with her. So with her divine hands she snatched from the fire the dear son whom Metanira had borne unhoped for in the palace, and cast him from her to the ground, for she was terribly angry in her heart. Forthwith she said to well-girded Metanira, "Witless are you mortals, and dull to foresee your lot, whether of good or evil, that comes upon you. For now in your heedlessness you have wrought folly past healing. For, be witness the oath of the gods, the relentless water of Styx. I would have made your dear son deathless and unaging all his days, and would have bestowed on him everlasting honor. But now he can in no way escape death and the fates. Yet shall unfailing honor always rest upon him, because he lay upon my knees and slept in my arms. But as the years move round, and when he is in his prime, the sons of the Eleusinians shall ever wage war and dread strife with one another continually. Lo, I am that Demeter who has share of honor, and is the greatest help and cause of joy to the undying gods and mortal men. But now let all the people build me a great temple and an altar below it, and beneath the city and its sheer wall, upon upon a rising hillock above Callichorus. And I myself will teach my rites, that hereafter you may reverently perform them and so win the favour of my heart." When she had so said, the goddess changed her stature and her looks, thrusting old age away from her. Beauty spread round about her, and a lovely fragrance was wafted from her sweet-smelling robes, and from the divine body of the goddess a light shone afar, while golden tresses spread down over her shoulders, so that the strong house was filled with brightness as with lightning. And so she went out from the palace, and straightway Metanira's knees were loosed, and she remained speechless for a long while, and did not remember to take up her late-born son from the ground. But his sisters heard his pitiful wailing and sprang down from their well-spread beds. One of them took up the child in her arms and laid him in her bosom, while another revived the fire, and a third rushed with soft feet to bring their mother from her fragrant chamber. And they gathered about the struggling child and washed him, embracing him lovingly. But he was not comforted, because nurses and handmaids much less skillful were holding him now. All night long they sought to appease the glorious goddess, quaking with fear. But as soon as dawn began to show, they told powerful Celeus all things without fail, as the lovely crowned goddess Demeter charged them. So Celeus called the countless people to an assembly and bade them make a goodly temple for rich-haired Demeter and an altar upon the rising hillock. And they obeyed him right speedily and hearkened to his voice, doing as he commanded. As for the child, he grew like an immortal being. Now when they had finished building and had drawn back from their toil, they went every man to his house. But golden-haired Demeter sat there apart from all the blessed gods and stayed, wasting with yearning for her deep-bosomed daughter. Then she caused a most dreadful and cruel year for mankind over the all-nourishing earth. The ground would not make the seed sprout, for rich-crowned Demeter kept it hid. In the fields the oxen drew many a curved plough in vain, and much white barley was cast upon the land without avail. So she would have destroyed the whole race of man with cruel famine, and have robbed them who dwell on Olympus of their glorious right of gifts and sacrifices, had not Zeus perceived and marked this in his heart. First he sent golden-winged Iris to call rich-haired Demeter, lovely in form. So he commanded, and she obeyed the dark-clouded son of Cronos, and sped with swift feet across the space between. She came to the stronghold of fragrant Eleusis, and there, finding dark-cloaked Demeter in her temple, spake to her and uttered winged words. "Demeter, Father Zeus, whose wisdom is everlasting, calls you to come join the tribes of the eternal gods. Come therefore, and let not the message I bring from Zeus pass unobeyed." Thus said Iris, imploring her, but Demeter's heart was not moved. Then again the Father sent forth all the blessed and eternal gods besides, and they came, one after the other, and kept calling her and offering many very beautiful gifts, and whatever right she might be pleased to choose among the deathless gods. Yet no one was able to persuade her mind and will, so wroth was she in her heart. But she stubbornly rejected all their words, for she vowed that she would never set foot on fragrant Olympus, nor let fruit spring out of the ground, until she beheld with her eyes her own fair-faced daughter. Now when all-seeing Zeus the loud thunderer heard this, he sent the slayer of Argus, whose wand is of gold, to Erebus, so that having won over Hades with soft words, he might lead forth chaste Persephone to the light from the misty gloom to join the gods, and that her mother might see her with her eyes and cease from her anger. And Hermes obeyed, and leaving the house of Olympus, straightway sprang down with speed to the hidden places of the earth. And he found the Lord Hades in his house, seated upon a couch, and his shy mate with him, much reluctant, because she yearned for her mother. But she was afar off, brooding on her fell design because of the deeds of the blessed gods. And the strong slayer of Argus drew near and said, "Dark-haired Hades, ruler over the departed, Father Zeus bids me bring noble Persephone forth from Erebus unto the gods, that her mother may see her with her eyes and cease from her dread anger with the immortals. For now she plans an awful deed, to destroy the weakly tribes of earthborn men by keeping seed hidden beneath the earth, and so she makes an end of the honours of the undying gods. For she keeps fearful anger and does not consort with the gods, but sits aloof in her fragrant temple, dwelling in the rocky hold of Eleusis." So he said, and Aidoneus, ruler over the dead, smiled grimly and obeyed the behest of Zeus the king. For he straightway urged wise Persephone, saying, "Go now, Persephone, to your dark-robed mother. Go, and feel kindly in your heart towards me. Be not so exceedingly cast down, for I shall be no unfitting husband for you among the deathless gods, that am own brother to Father Zeus. And while you are here, you shall rule all that lives and moves, and shall have the greatest rights among the deathless gods. Those who defraud you and do not appease your power with offerings, reverently performing rites and paying fit gifts, shall be punished forevermore." When he said this, wise Persephone was filled with joy and hastily sprang up for gladness. But he on his part secretly gave her sweet pomegranate seed to eat, taking care for himself that she might not remain continually with grave, dark-robed Demeter. Then Aidoneus, the ruler of many, openly got ready his deathless horses beneath the golden chariot. And she mounted on the chariot, and the strong slayer of Argos took reins and whip in his dear hands and drove forth from the hall, the horses speeding readily. Swiftly they traversed their long course, and neither the sea nor river waters, nor grassy glens, nor mountain peaks checked the career of the immortal horses, but they clave the deep air above them as they went. And Hermes brought them to the place where rich-crowned Demeter was staying, and checked them before her fragrant temple. And when Demeter saw them, she rushed forth, as does a Maenad down some thick-wooded mountain, while Persephone on the other side, when she saw her mother's sweet eyes, left the chariot and horses, and leaped down to run to her, and falling upon her neck, embraced her. But while Demeter was still holding her dear child in her arms, her heart suddenly misgave her for some snare, so that she feared greatly and ceased fondling her daughter and asked of her at once, "My child, tell me, surely you have not tasted any food while you were below? Speak out and hide nothing, but let us both know. For if you have not, you shall come back from loathly Hades and live with me and your father, the dark-clouded son of Kronos, and be honoured by all the deathless gods. But if you have tasted food, you must go back again beneath the secret places of the earth, there to dwell a third part of the seasons every year. Yet for the 2 parts you shall be with me and the other deathless gods. But when the earth shall bloom with the fragrant flowers of spring in every kind, then from the realm of darkness and gloom thou shalt come up once more to be a wonder for gods and mortal men. And now tell me how he rapt you away to the realm of darkness and gloom, and by what trick did the strong host of many beguile you?" Then beautiful Persephone answered her thus, "Mother, I will tell you all without error. When luck-bringing Hermes came, swift messenger from my father the son of Kronos and the other sons of heaven, bidding me come back from Erebus, that you might see me with your eyes, and so cease from your anger and fearful wrath against the gods. I sprang up at once for joy, but he secretly put in my mouth sweet food, a pomegranate seed, and forced me to taste against my will. Also, I will tell how he wrapped me away by the deep plan of my father, the son of Kronos, and carried me off beneath the depths of the earth, and will relate the whole matter as you ask. All we were playing in a lovely meadow, Leucippe and Pheno, and Electra and Xanthe, Melita also and Iacche, with Rhodea and Calero, and Melibosis and Tyche and Osiroi, fair as a flower, Chryseis, Ionera, Acaste and Admete, and Rhodope and Pluto and charming Calypso. Styx too was there, and Urania and lovely Galaxora, with Pallas, who rouses battles, and Artemis delighting in arrows. We were playing and gathering sweet flowers in our hands, soft crocuses mingled with irises and hyacinths, and rose blooms and lilies, marvellous to see, and the narcissus which the wide earth caused to grow yellow as a crocus, that I plucked in my joy. But the earth parted beneath, and there the strong Lord, the host of many, sprang forth, and in his golden chariot he bore me away, all unwilling, beneath the earth. Then I cried with a shrill cry. All this is true, sore though it grieves me to tell the tale. So did they turn, with hearts at one, greatly cheer each the other's soul and spirit with many an embrace. Their heart had relief from their griefs, while each took and gave back joyousness. Then bright coiffed Hecate came near to them, and often did she embrace the daughter of holy Demeter. And from that time, the lady Hecate was minister and companion to Persephone. And all-seeing Zeus sent a messenger to them, rich-haired Rhea, to bring dark-cloaked Demeter to join the families of the gods. And he promised to give her what right she should choose among the deathless gods, and agreed that her daughter should go down for the third part of the circling year to darkness and gloom, but for the 2 parts should live with her mother and the other deathless gods. Thus he commanded, and the goddess did not disobey the message of Zeus. Swiftly she rushed down from the peaks of Olympus and came to the plain of Rarus, rich, fertile cornland once, but then in no wise fruitful, for it lay idle and utterly leafless, because the white grain was hidden by design of trim-ankled Demeter. But afterwards, as springtime waxed, it was soon to be waving with long ears of corn, and its rich furrows to be loaded with grain upon the ground, while others would already be bound in sheaves. There first she landed from the fruitless upper air, and glad were the goddesses to see each other and cheered in heart. Then bright coiffed Rhea said to Demeter, "Come, my daughter, for far-seeing Zeus, the loud thunderer, calls you to join the families of the gods, and has promised to give you what rights you please among the deathless gods, and has agreed that for a third part of the circling year, your daughter shall go down to darkness and gloom, but for the 2 parts shall be with you and the other deathless gods. So has he declared it shall be, and has bowed his head in token. But come, my child, obey, and be not too angry unrelentingly with the dark-clouded son of Kronos, but rather increase forthwith for men the fruit that gives them life." So spake Rhea, and rich-crowned Demeter did not refuse, but straightway made fruit to spring up from the rich lands, so that the whole wide earth was laden with leaves and flowers. Then she went, and to the kings who deal justice, Triptolemus and Diocles, the horse-driver, and to doughty Eumolpus and Celeus, leader of the people, She showed the conduct of her rites and taught them all her mysteries. To Triptolemus and Polyxenus and Diocles also. Awful mysteries, which no one may in any way transgress or pry into or utter, for deep awe of the gods checks the voice. Happy is he among men upon earth who has seen these mysteries, but he who is uninitiate and who has no part in them never has lot of like good things once he is dead, down in the darkness and gloom. But when the bright goddess had taught them all, they went to Olympus to the gathering of the other gods. And there they dwell beside Zeus, who delights in thunder, awful and reverend goddesses. Right blessed is he among men on earth whom they freely love. Soon they do send Plutus as guest to his great house, Plutus who gives wealth to mortal men. And now, queen of the land of sweet Eleusis and sea-girt Paros and rocky Antron, lady, giver of good gifts, bringer of seasons, Queen Deo, be gracious, you and your daughter, all beauteous Persephone, and for my song grant me heart-cheering substance. And now I will remember you and another song also. Orpheus and Eurydice and the long walk back. From chapter 44, Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus was the son of Apollo and the muse Calliope. He was presented by his father with a lyre and taught to play upon it, which he did to such perfection that nothing could withstand the charm of his music. Not only his fellow mortals, but wild beasts were softened by his strains, and gathering round him, laid by their fierceness, and stood entranced with his lay. Nay, the very trees and rocks were sensible to the charm. The former crowded round him, and the latter relaxed somewhat of their hardness, softened by his notes. Hymen had been called to bless with his presence the nuptials of Orpheus with Eurydice, but though he attended, he brought no happy omens with him. His very torch smoked and brought tears into their eyes. In coincidence with such prognostics, Eurydice, shortly after her marriage, while wandering with the nymphs, her companions, was seen by the shepherd Aristaeus, who was struck with her beauty and made advances to her. She fled, and in flying trod upon a snake in the grass, was bitten in the foot, and died. Orpheus sang his grief to all who breathed the upper air, both gods and men, and finding it all unavailing, resolved to seek his wife in the regions of the dead. He descended by a cave situated on the side of the promontory of Taenarus, and arrived at the Stygian realm. He passed through crowds of ghosts and presented himself before the throne of Pluto and Proserpine. Accompanying the words with the lyre, he sung, "O deities of the underworld, to whom all we who live must come, hear my words, for they are true. I come not to spy out the secrets of Tartarus, nor to try my strength against the three-headed dog with snaky hair who guards the entrance. I come to seek my wife, whose opening years the poisonous viper's fang has brought to an untimely end. Love has led me here. Love, a god all-powerful with us who dwell on the earth, and, if old traditions say true, not less so here. I implore you by these abodes full of terror, these realms of silence and uncreated things, unite again the thread of Eurydice's life. We all are destined to you, and sooner or later must pass to your domain. She too, when she shall have filled her term of life, will rightly be yours. But till then, grant her to me, I beseech you. If you deny me, I cannot return alone. You shall triumph in the death of us both." As he sang these tender strains, The very ghosts shed tears. Tantalus, in spite of his thirst, stopped for a moment his efforts for water. Ixion's will stood still. The vulture ceased to tear the giant's liver. The daughters of Danaus rested from their task of drawing water in a sieve, and Sisyphus sat on his rock to listen. Then for the first time, it is said, the cheeks of the Furies were wet with tears. Proserpine could not resist, and Pluto himself gave way. Eurydice was called. She came from among the new-arrived ghosts, limping with her wounded foot. Orpheus was permitted to take her away with him on one condition, that he should not turn around to look at her till they should have reached the upper air. Under this condition they proceeded on their way, he leading, she following, through passages dark and steep, in total silence, till they had nearly reached the outlet into the cheerful upper world, when Orpheus, in a moment of forgetfulness, to assure himself that she was still following, cast a glance behind him, when instantly she was borne away. Stretching out their arms to embrace each other, they grasped only the air, dying now a second time. She yet cannot reproach her husband, for how can she blame his impatience to behold her? "Farewell," she said, "a last farewell," and was hurried away, so fast that the sound hardly reached his ears. Orpheus endeavoured to follow her, and besought permission to return and try once more for her release. But the stern ferryman repulsed him and refused passage. 7 days he lingered about the brink, without food or sleep, then bitterly accusing of cruelty the powers of Erebus, he sang his complaints to the rocks and mountains, melting the hearts of tigers and moving the oaks from their stations. He held himself aloof from womankind, dwelling constantly on the recollection of his sad mischance. The Thracian maidens tried their best to captivate him, but he repulsed their advances. They bore with him as long as they could, but finding him insensible one day, excited by the rites of Bacchus, one of them exclaimed, "See yonder our despiser," and threw at him her javelin. The weapon, as soon as it came within the sound of his lyre, fell harmless at his feet. So did also the stones that they threw at him. But the women raised a scream and drowned the voice of the music, and then the missiles reached him and soon were stained with his blood. The maniacs tore him limb from limb and threw his head and his lyre into the river Hebrus, down which they floated, murmuring sad music, to which the shores responded a plaintive symphony. The muses gathered up the fragments of his body and buried them at Lebethra, where the nightingale is said to sing over his grave more sweetly than in any other part of Greece. His lyre was placed by Jupiter among the stars. His shade passed a second time to Tartarus, where he sought out his Eurydice and embraced her with eager arms. They roam the happy fields together now, sometimes he leading, sometimes she, and Orpheus gazes as much as he will upon her, no longer incurring a penalty for a thoughtless glance. The story of Orpheus has furnished Pope with an illustration of the power of music for his Ode for St. Cecilia's Day. The following stanza relates the conclusion of the story. But soon, too soon, the lover turns his eyes. Again she falls, again she dies. She dies. How wilt thou now the fatal sisters move? No crime was thine, if 'tis no crime to love. Now under hanging mountains, beside the falls of fountains, or where Hebrus wanders, rolling in meanders, all alone, he makes his moan, and calls her ghost, forever, ever, ever lost. Now with fury surrounded, despairing, confounded, he trembles, He glows amidst Rhodope's snows. See, wild as the winds o'er the desert, he flies. Hark! Hemus resounds with the Bacchanal's cries. Ah, see, he dies. Yet even in death Eurydice he sung. Eurydice still trembled on his tongue. Eurydice, the woods. Eurydice, the floods. Eurydice, the rocks and hollow mountains rung. The superior melody of the nightingale's song over the grave of Orpheus is alluded to by Southey in his Thalaba. Then on his ear what sounds of harmony arose. Far music and the distance mellowed song from bowers of merriment, the waterfall remote, the murmuring of the leafy groves, the single nightingale perched in the rosier by, so richly toned, that never from that most melodious bird singing a love song to his brooding mate, did Thracian shepherd by the grave of Orpheus hear a sweeter melody, though there the spirit of the sepulchre all his own power infuse, to swell the incense that he loves. The realm below. From chapter 22, the infernal regions, the Sibyl, the infernal regions. As at the commencement of our series, we have given the pagan account of the creation of the world, so as we approach its conclusion, we present a view of the regions of the dead, depicted by one of their most enlightened poets, who drew his doctrines from their most esteemed philosophers. The region where Virgil locates the entrance to this abode is perhaps the most strikingly adapted to excite ideas of the terrific and preternatural of any on the face of the earth. It is the volcanic region near Vesuvius, where the whole country is cleft with chasms, from which sulphurous flames arise, while the ground is shaken with pent-up vapours, and mysterious sounds issue from the bowels of the earth. The lake Avernus is supposed to fill the crater of an extinct volcano. It is circular, half a mile wide, and very deep, surrounded by high banks, which in Virgil's time were covered with a gloomy forest. Mephitic vapours rise from its waters, so that no life is found on its banks, and no birds fly over it. Here, according to the poet, was the cave which afforded access to the infernal regions, and here Aeneas offered sacrifices to the infernal deities, Proserpine, Hecate, and the Furies. Then a roaring was heard in the earth, the woods on the hilltops were shaken, and the howling of dogs announced the approach of the deities. "Now," said the Sibyl, "summon up your courage, for you will need it." She descended into the cave, and Aeneas followed. Before the threshold of hell, they passed through a group of beings who are enumerated as griefs and avenging cares, pale diseases and melancholy age, fear and hunger that tempt to crime, toil, poverty, and death. Forms horrible to view. The Furies spread their couches there, and Discord, whose hair was of vipers tied up with a bloody fillet. Here also were the monsters, Briareus, with his 100 arms, hydras hissing, and chimaeras breathing fire. Aeneas shuddered at the sight, drew his sword, and would have struck, but the Sibyl restrained him. They then came to the black river Cocytus, where they found the ferryman, Charon, old and squalid, but strong and vigorous, who was receiving passengers of all kinds into his boat, magnanimous heroes, boys and unmarried girls, as numerous as the leaves that fall at autumn, or the flocks that fly southward at the approach of winter. They stood pressing for a passage and longing to touch the opposite shore, but the stern ferryman took in only such as he chose, driving the rest back. Aeneas, wondering at the sight, asked the Sibyl, "Why this discrimination?" She answered, "Those who are taken on board the bark are the souls of those who have received due burial rites. The host of others who have remained unburied are not permitted to pass the flood, but wander 100 years, and flit to and fro about the shore, till at last they are taken over." Aeneas grieved at recollecting some of his own companions who had perished in the storm. That moment he beheld Palinurus, his pilot, who fell overboard and was drowned. He addressed him and asked him the cause of his misfortune. Palinurus replied that the rudder was carried away, and he, clinging to it, was swept away with it. He besought Aeneas most urgently to extend to him his hand and take him in company to the opposite shore. But the Sibyl rebuked him for the wish thus to transgress the laws of Pluto, but consoled him by informing him that the people of the shore where his body had been wafted by the waves should be stirred up by prodigies to give it due burial, and that the promontory should bear the name of Cape Palinurus, which it does to this day. Leaving Palinurus consoled by these words, they approached the boat. Charon, fixing his eyes sternly upon the advancing warrior, demanded by what right he, living and armed, approached that shore, to which the Sibyl replied that they would commit no violence, that Aeneas's only object was to see his father, and finally exhibited the golden branch, at sight of which Charon's wrath relaxed, and he made haste to turn his bark to the shore and receive them on board. The boat, adapted only to the light freight of bodiless spirits, groaned under the weight of the hero. They were soon conveyed to the opposite shore. There they were encountered by the three-headed dog, Cerberus, with his neck bristling with snakes. He barked with all his three throats till the Sibyl threw him a medicated cake which he eagerly devoured, and then stretched himself out in his den and fell asleep. Aeneas and the Sibyl sprang to land. The first sound that struck their ears was the wailing of young children, who had died on the threshold of life, and near to these were they who had perished under false charges. Minos presides over them as judge, and examines the deeds of each. The next class was of those who had died by their own hand, hating life and seeking refuge in death. Oh, how willingly would they now endure poverty, labour, and any other infliction, if they might but return to life. Next were situated the regions of sadness, divided off into retired paths, leading through groves of myrtle. Here roamed those who had fallen victims to unrequited love, not freed from pain even by death itself. Among these, Aeneas thought he descried the form of Dido, with a wound still recent. In the dim light he was for a moment uncertain, but approaching, perceived it was indeed herself. Tears fell from his eyes, and he addressed her in the accents of love. "Unhappy Dido, was then the rumour true that you had perished? And was I, alas, the cause? I call the gods to witness that my departure from you was reluctant, and in obedience to the commands of Jove, nor could I believe that my absence would cost you so dear. Stop, I beseech you, and refuse me not a last farewell." She stood for a moment with averted countenance, and eyes fixed on the ground, and then silently passed on, as insensible to his pleadings as a rock. Aeneas followed for some distance, then, with a heavy heart, rejoined his companion and resumed his route. They next entered the fields where roam the heroes who have fallen in battle. Here they saw many shades of Grecian and Trojan warriors. The Trojans thronged around him and could not be satisfied with the sight. They asked the cause of his coming. and plied him with innumerable questions. But the Greeks, at the sight of his armor glittering through the murky atmosphere, recognized the hero and, filled with terror, turned their backs and fled, as they used to do on the plains of Troy. Aeneas would have lingered long with his Trojan friends, but the Sibyl hurried him away. They next came to a place where the road divided, the one leading to Elysium, the other to the regions of the condemned. Aeneas beheld on one side the walls of a mighty city, around which Phlegethon rolled its fiery waters. Before him was the gate of adamant that neither gods nor men can break through. An iron tower stood by the gate, on which Tisiphone, the avenging Fury, kept guard. From the city were heard groans, and the sound of the scourge, the creaking of iron, and the clanking of chains. Aeneas, horror-struck, inquired of his guide what crimes were those whose punishments produced the sounds he heard. The Sibyl answered, "Here is the judgment hall of Rhadamanthus, who brings to light crimes done in life, which the perpetrator vainly thought impenetrably hid. Tisiphone applies her whip of scorpions and delivers the offender over to her sister Furies. At this moment, with horrid clang, the brazen gates unfolded, and Aeneas saw, within a hydra with 50 heads guarding the entrance. The Sibyl told him that the Gulf of Tartarus descended deep, so that its recesses were as far beneath their feet as heaven was high above their heads. In the bottom of this pit, the Titan race, who warred against the gods, lie prostrate. Salmoneus, also, who presumed to vie with Jupiter, and built a bridge of brass over which he drove his chariot that the sound might resemble thunder, launching flaming brands at his people in imitation of lightning, till Jupiter struck him with a real thunderbolt and taught him the difference between mortal weapons and divine. Here, also, is Tityus, the giant, whose form is so immense that as he lies, he stretches over 9 acres, while a vulture preys upon his liver, which as fast as it is devoured grows again, so that his punishment will have no end. Aeneas saw groups seated at tables loaded with dainties, while nearby stood a Fury who snatched away the viands from their lips as fast as they prepared to taste them. Others beheld suspended over their heads huge rocks, threatening to fall, keeping them in a state of constant alarm. These were they who had hated their brothers, or struck their parents, or defrauded the friends who trusted them, or who, having grown rich, kept their money to themselves and gave no share to others, the last being the most numerous class. Here also were those who had violated the marriage vow, or fought in a bad cause, or failed in fidelity to their employers. Here was one who had sold his country for gold, another who perverted the laws, making them say one thing today and another tomorrow. Ixion was there, fastened to the circumference of a wheel ceaselessly revolving, and Sisyphus, whose task was to roll a huge stone up to a hilltop, but when the steep was well nigh gained, the rock, repulsed by some sudden force, rushed again headlong down to the plain. Again he toiled at it, while the sweat bathed all his weary limbs, but all to no effect. There was Tantalus, who stood in a pool, his chin level with the water, yet he was parched with thirst, and found nothing to assuage it. For when he bowed his hoary head, eager to quaff, the water fled away, leaving the ground at his feet all dry. Tall trees laden with fruit stooped their heads to him, pears, pomegranates, apples, and luscious figs. But when, with a sudden grasp he tried to seize them, winds whirled them high above his reach. The Sibyl now warned Aeneas that it was time to turn from these melancholy regions and seek the city of the blessed. They passed through a middle tract of darkness and came upon the Elysian fields, the groves where the happy reside. They breathed a freer air and saw all objects clothed in a purple light. The region has a sun and stars of its own. The inhabitants were enjoying themselves in various ways, some in sports on the grassy turf, in games of strength or skill, others dancing or singing. Orpheus struck the chords of his lyre and called forth ravishing sounds. Here Aeneas saw the founders of the Trojan state, magnanimous heroes who lived in happier times. He gazed with admiration on the war chariots and glittering arms now reposing in disuse. Spears stood fixed in the ground, and the horses, unharnessed, roamed over the plain. The same pride in splendid armor and generous steeds which the old heroes felt in life accompanied them here. He saw another group feasting and listening to the strains of music. They were in a laurel grove, whence the great river Po has its origin and flows out among men. Here dwelt those who fell by wounds received in their country's cause, holy priests also, and poets who have uttered thoughts worthy of Apollo, and others who have contributed to cheer and adorn life by their discoveries in the useful arts, and have made their memory blessed by rendering service to mankind. They wore snow-white fillets about their brows. The Sibyl addressed a group of these and inquired where Anchises was to be found. They were directed where to seek him, and soon found him in a verdant valley, where he was contemplating the ranks of his posterity, their destinies and worthy deeds to be achieved in coming times. When he recognized Aeneas approaching, he stretched out both hands to him, while tears flowed freely. "Have you come at last?" said he. "Long expected, and do I behold you after such perils past? O my son, how have I trembled for you as I have watched your career?" To which Aeneas replied, "O father, your image was always before me to guide and guard me." Then he endeavored to enfold his father in his embrace, but his arms enclosed only an unsubstantial image. Aeneas perceived before him a spacious valley, with trees gently waving to the wind, a tranquil landscape through which the river Lethe flowed. Along the banks of the stream wandered a countless multitude, numerous as insects in the summer air. Aeneas, with surprise, inquired who were these. Anchises answered, "They are souls to which bodies are to be given in due time. Meanwhile, they dwell on Lethe's bank and drink oblivion of their former lives." "O father," said Aeneas, "is it possible that any can be so in love with life as to wish to leave these tranquil seats for the upper world?" Anchises replied by explaining the plan of creation. The Creator, he told him, originally made the material of which souls are composed of the four elements: fire, air, earth, and water, all which when united took the form of the most excellent part, fire, and became flame. This material was scattered like seed among the heavenly bodies, the sun, moon, and stars. Of this seed, the inferior gods created man and all other animals, mingling it with various proportions of earth, by which its purity was alloyed and reduced. Thus, the more earth predominates in the composition, the less pure is the individual, and we see men and women, with their full-grown bodies, have not the purity of childhood. So in proportion to the time which the union of body and soul has lasted, is the impurity contracted by the spiritual part. This impurity must be purged away after death, which is done by ventilating the souls in the current of winds, or merging them in water, or burning out their impurities by fire. Some few, of whom Anchises intimates that he is one, are admitted at once to Elysium, there to remain. But the rest, after the impurities of earth are purged away, are sent back to life endowed with new bodies, having had the remembrance of their former lives effectually washed away by the waters of Lethe. Some, however, there still are, so thoroughly corrupted that they are not fit to be entrusted with human bodies, and these are made into brute animals, lions, tigers, cats, dogs, monkeys, etc. This is what the ancients called metempsychosis, or the transmigration of souls, a doctrine which is still held by the natives of India, who scruple to destroy the life even of the most insignificant animal, not knowing but it may be one of their relations in an altered form. Anchises, having explained so much, proceeded to point out to Aeneas individuals of his race who were hereafter to be born, and to relate to him the exploits they should perform in the world. After this he reverted to the present, and told his son of the events that remained to him to be accomplished before the complete establishment of himself and his followers in Italy. Wars were to be waged, battles fought, a bride to be won, and in the result, a Trojan state founded, from which should rise the Roman power, to be in time the sovereign of the world. Aeneas and the Sibyl then took leave of Anchises, and returned by some shortcut, which the poet does not explain, to the upper world, Elysium. Virgil, we have seen, places his Elysium under the earth, and assigns it for a residence to the spirits of the blessed. But in Homer, Elysium forms no part of the realms of the dead. He places it on the west of the earth, near ocean, and describes it as a happy land, where there is neither snow, nor cold, nor rain, and always fanned by the delightful breezes of Zephyrus. Hither favoured heroes pass without dying, and live happy under the rule of Rhadamanthus. The Elysium of Hesiod and Pindar is in the Isles of the Blessed, or Fortunate Islands, in the Western Ocean. From these sprang the legend of the happy island Atlantis. This blissful region may have been wholly imaginary, but possibly may have sprung from the reports of some storm-driven mariners who had caught a glimpse of the coast of America. J. R. Lowell, in one of his shorter poems, claims for the present age some of the privileges of that happy realm. Addressing the past, he says, "Whatever of true life there was in thee leaps in our age's veins. Here, mid the bleak waves of our strife and care, float the green, fortunate isles, where all thy hero spirits dwell and share our martyrdoms and toils. The present moves attended with all of brave and excellent and fair that made the old times splendid." Milton also alludes to the same fable in Paradise Lost, Book 3, 1, 568. Like those Hesperian gardens famed of old, fortunate fields, and groves and flowery vales, thrice happy isles. And in Book 2, he characterizes the rivers of Erebus according to the meaning of their names in the Greek language. Abhorred Styx, the flood of deadly hate, sad Acheron of sorrow black and deep, Cocytus named of lamentation loud, heard on the rueful stream, fierce Phlegethon, whose waves of torrent fire inflame with rage. Far off from these a slow and silent stream, Lethe, the river of oblivion, rolls her watery labyrinth, whereof who drinks forthwith his former state and being forgets both joy and grief, pleasure and pain, the Sibyl. As Aeneas and the Sibyl pursued their way back to earth, he said to her, "Whether thou be a goddess or a mortal beloved of the gods, by me thou shalt always be held in reverence. When I reach the upper air, I will cause a temple to be built to thy honor, and will myself bring offerings." "I am no goddess," said the Sibyl. "I have no claim to sacrifice or offering. I am mortal. Yet if I could have accepted the love of Apollo, I might have been immortal." He promised me the fulfillment of my wish, if I would consent to be his. I took a handful of sand, and holding it forth, said, "Grant me to see as many birthdays as there are sand grains in my hand." Unluckily, I forgot to ask for enduring youth. This also he would have granted, could I have accepted his love, but offended at my refusal, he allowed me to grow old. My youth and youthful strength fled long ago. I have lived 700 years, and to equal the number of the sand grains, I have still to see 300 springs and 300 harvests. My body shrinks up as years increase, and in time I shall be lost to sight, but my voice will remain, and future ages will respect my sayings. These concluding words of the Sibyl alluded to her prophetic power. In her cave, she was accustomed to inscribe on leaves gathered from the trees the names and fates of individuals. The leaves thus inscribed were arranged in order within the cave and might be consulted by her votaries. But if perchance at the opening of the door, the wind rushed in and dispersed the leaves, the Sibyl gave no aid to restoring them again, and the oracle was irreparably lost. The following legend of the Sibyl is fixed at a later date. In the reign of one of the Tarquins, there appeared before the king a woman who offered him 9 books for sale. The king refused to purchase them, whereupon the woman went away and burned 3 of the books, and returning offered the remaining books for the same price she had asked for the 9. The king again rejected them, but when the woman, after burning 3 books more, returned and asked for the 3 remaining the same price which she had before asked for the 9, his curiosity was excited, and he purchased the books. They were found to contain the destinies of the Roman state. They were kept in the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus, preserved in a stone chest, and allowed to be inspected only by a special officers appointed for that duty, who, on great occasions, consulted them and interpreted their oracles to the people. There were various Sibyls, but the Cumaean Sibyl, of whom Ovid and Virgil write, is the most celebrated of them. Ovid's story of her life, protracted to 1,000 years, may be intended to represent the various Sibyls as being only reappearances of one and the same individual. Young, in the Night Thoughts, alludes to the Sibyl. Speaking of worldly wisdom, he says, "If future fate she plans, 'tis all in leaves, like Sibyl, unsubstantial, fleeting bliss. At the first blast it vanishes in air. As worldly schemes resemble Sibyl's leaves, the good man's days to Sibyl's books compare, the price still rising as in number less." And so we come to the end of tonight's reading. Sleep well, dream of old worlds. Until tomorrow night.